In effect, policymakers at the Bank of Japan allowed the bubble to swell. It all started with the Plaza Accord in 1985. 5 developed countries agreed to a demand by the U.S. to begin coordinated efforts to weaken the dollar. Prompting the move was the ballooning U.S. budget deficit. In the 1980s, Japanese manufacturers were enjoying a golden age, as seen in a newly coined phrase, Japan as number one. Japanese consumer electronics took the global market by storm. Japan surpassed the U.S. in car sales to become the world's largest auto producer. As a result, many American automobile factories were forced to shut down. An influx of Japanese goods aggravated the friction between the two countries. People in the U.S. became increasingly critical of Japan. Officials in Washington increased pressure on Japan to strengthen the yen and introduce monetary easing measures. Here's the thinking. A stronger yen drives up the cost of imports from Japan. That should put a brake on the inflow of Japanese goods. And if Japan introduces monetary easing when the yen is strong, more money will flow into the Japanese economy, stimulating growth. That would allow the U.S. to expand exports to Japan. We spoke with a former chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve Board who was one of the engineers of the Plaza Accord.
Japan was going to become the strong new economy in the world, Japan #1. Japan industry was greatly admired during that period for its competitiveness or its efficiency. To exaggerate that our industry would be overwhelmed by Japanese now.
A Japanese official who participated in the negotiations admits that Japan had no choice but to accept Washington's demands.
They stressed that we were under their nuclear umbrella. I knew only too well that Japan was able to strengthen its economic might thanks to the protection the U.S. military provided under the Japan-U.S. alliance. I felt strongly that we had to conclude the agreement.
In January 1986, 4 months after the Plaza Accord, the Bank of Japan implemented monetary easing policies. The measure was carried out by lowering the official discount rate. Policymakers lowered the rate in January, March, and April. The official rate is the interest applied when the central bank lends funds to other financial institutions. When the rate is lowered, money flows more easily to other banks, and the volume of funds in the market increases.
この1年間に1平方メートルあたり67万円余りだった土地の価格が133万円とほぼ2倍になりました。異常な上がり方です。
The BOJ repeatedly lowered interest rates over a short period. This increased the investment banks made in real estate and boosted the rise in land prices. Former BOJ Executive Director Tsukuda says it was around this time that a sense of caution intensified within the central bank.
The aggressive activities of financial institutions were starting to attract notice. We all realized that, at the very least, the official discount rate should not be lowered any further. That was the widespread understanding at the bank.
But even though they realized that abnormal loans were being extended to the real estate industry, policymakers continued to lower interest rates. Once again, this was done at the prompting of the United States. In September 1986, Japan's finance minister, Kiichi Miyazawa, met with U.S. Treasury Secretary James Baker. Miyazawa said he wanted to protect Japan's export industry by putting a stop to the appreciation of the yen. But Baker replied that the U.S. trade deficit was not shrinking and demanded that interest rates be lowered further. The BOJ was pressed to act, but some policymakers raised their voices against further interest rate cuts. The leading proponent was the BOJ's vice governor, Yasushi Mieno, who had spent his career at the bank. NHK has acquired internal BOJ documents detailing Mieno's views about the debate. They describe how he offered suggestions to the bank's governor, Satoshi Sumita, who was from the finance ministry and had executive authority. Mieno was adamant that the interest rate should not be lowered.
The surge in land prices in central Tokyo is astounding. Trading in precious metals and financial instruments are gradually becoming more active. Given these economic conditions, it wouldn't be proper to lower the discount rate.
But 1 month later,
金融政策面でももう一段の金利の引き下げを図ることが先行きの内需拡大、内需振興にとってより有効であると。
Sumita decided to lower the rate again. On the same day, Finance Minister Miyazawa announced a deal he had reached with U.S. Treasury Secretary Baker. The U.S. would keep the yen's appreciation in check, and in exchange, Japan agreed to lower interest rates.
これ以上の円高はないということについての合意ということですね。
Mieno said he had not been informed in advance about the interest rate cut.
We didn't know about this. We don't know much about what Miyazawa and Sumita discussed. In any case, the BOJ didn't cut the rate because of domestic factors, but out of consideration for a foreign country.
And then, the bank was hit by an unexpected incident in the United States. In October 1987, the New York Stock Exchange crashed. The day came to be known as Black Monday.
It was just going down and down and down, never stopped.
Share prices plunged, and the effects rippled from the US to Japan and across the globe. If central banks raised interest rates at such a delicate time, they would run the risk of dampening the economy. That could cause turmoil in financial markets. So the BOJ was forced to abandon the idea of raising interest rates.
Everything underwent a dramatic change on Black Monday. Especially in terms of the official discount rate. Everyone became timid. And raising rates was not even discussed.
For over 2 years, the Bank of Japan maintained low interest rates. It finally raised them in May 1989. In December of that year, the bubble hit its peak, and the Nikkei index topped 38,000 yen. But the very next month, share prices took a turn. They finally started to fall.